Hey buddy, it's Peter, and this is a 2025 Yamaha Tracer 9, and I did a review on this before, but I didn't talk about the Y-AMT transmission, in other words, the automatic transmission. So I'm hoping you don't tune out right now because it's actually kind of good, but I want to put some clarifications on that. So what happened is I didn't know enough about the transmission to talk about it in my previous review of this bike. I like this bike. I had a chance to ride it on the Yamaha demo day here at McLean Sports. McLean Sports is awesome. They give me complete access to their entire vehicle lineup. So when you have questions, I can come back to the same bikes again and again and make sure I get you the answers. But of course, the big question we all had was this automatic transmission. So having ridden it, this is kind of like a riding impression of just the automatic transmission. I'm not exactly sure how to do this video, but I will try to give you information that other videos aren't giving you. This is not going to be a technical how does this transmission work. It's purely a review from the rider's seat of what I think is good and bad and what other riders have commented to me after they rode it on a Yamaha demo day. So I'm hoping to give you sort of a comprehensive review of why I think it's going to be okay if some bikes go automatic, and you know, if you should choose it or not for yourself. So that's what we're going to try to do in this video. Let's get going. All right, I'm really quickly going to do the YouTube thing. I review as many bikes as I can on this channel, is all the 2025s. I just did a 2026 already here on August 1st, 2025. If reviews of bikes are what you're interested in, do me a favor, hit subscribe, hit like, leave a positive comment, but also just find a couple reviews on this channel and watch them to the end. If you did that, it would help me out a lot. The more you guys help me out, the more access I get to bikes like this. And Yamaha, if you're listening this far in, I would like to drive one of these for a little bit longer term. Other manufacturers are letting me do that now, so I will try to reach out, but I would like to spend more time with the automatic transmission, and now we should really talk about what it is. So first of all, I want to be clear, I am like most motorcyclists. I want my motorcycles manual, and that's probably how I would buy them. I would consider buying this bike in the automatic because I think it's good. I'm about to go ride for the weekend Can-Am's semi-automatic transmission, which is a similar switchgear to this, but functions totally different. And I'll be very honest, I don't like their semi-automatic transmission as much as this one. This one has to be better because it's a two-wheel vehicle. Can-Am has a three-wheel vehicle. So let me talk about what went on when I went to ride it. First of all, obviously no clutch, obviously no gear lever. Right away, how do you get going? Well, it starts in sort of a first gear and it's like an automatic transmission. You can release the brakes and it will sit still, but if you rev the throttle, so in other words, don't rev the throttle at you know, at a stoplight or something like that unless you're in neutral because there's no clutch. So if you rev the throttle, you will go. The initial bite is a big concern for me with some of these automatic transmissions because we always have the ability as a automatic or as a standard transmission rider to feather that clutch and have that launch exactly the way we want to. This bike is pretty good with that. And what I mean is a standard launch, you just roll on and off it goes, it kicks into gear, and it doesn't feel like an automatic transmission. It feels exactly like a normal regular bike in the way that it launches from the throttle perspective, from the seat of the pants perspective. There is a little bit of extreme slow speed riding where it's a little bit on and off, and that's the only really complaint I have about the automaticness of something being where you can ride a standard bike better than this. So the only place I could see that coming in is if you did a sharp U-turn at a very, very, very slow speed. It's going to keep you rolling. And again, you tap the brakes, you stop, like it works fine. It's just a slight little bit different, and most of us aren't going to do U-turns that sharp. So with that out of the way, let's switch the camera to the other side, and I want to talk about how this works and what I've experienced and what I was told by other riders as well. So I want to show you where I am on the bike. Again, it's just on its side stand right now. We can sort of take it in different spots. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. You can sort of see, yeah, that should be enough. This is what we would traditionally call the clutch side. Obviously no clutch lever here, but I want to show you the controls here. There is a trigger over here, and it's the same switch as the thumb. So it just feels like a push button type thing. So it's a very easy to move thing. And the push button is up a gear. The thumb is a negative down a gear, and I have a plus and minus on that. You very quickly learn what it is. So that is how you're shifting gears. Now, the other thing is because you're shifting gears, there is no shift lever down here. Generally, the no shift lever doesn't bother me at all. It is, on occasion, I will grab for a clutch on this bike. But here's what the point I want to make on this bike. So let me just review the camera, because this is a massive difference that makes this automatic transmission actually very, very, very good. So the reason I think this automatic transmission is going to succeed, and the reason I think that the market should accept it, is basically because in this class of bike, everything is going to have a quick shifter. Now, quick shifters vary in quality. They vary in the rider's ability to make it feel good. Sometimes you have to really rev it for the quick shifter to feel good. Other times they're better at slower speeds. Sometimes they're better at higher revs and all lower revs, that kind of thing. But the quick shifter is essentially the elimination of a clutch. Other than that first gear launch, the quick shifter essentially eliminates the clutch and turns the shift lever into a switch. It is an instant shift. Now, what I like about this is this feels like a quick shifter. Instead of switching with your foot, you're switching with your trigger or with your thumb. So you're triggering or thumbing. And it is a perfect quick shift every time. It is a lightning fast shift. It is exactly in control, and it is a smooth shift. So if you want to shift this thing manual, it is absolutely perfect as a quick shifter. Switching it from manual to automatic is a quick tap of the controls. It's very simple to do. But what you end up with is when you drive it in manual mode, and this is very much made to be driven in manual mode as well. It's not like it wants to be automatic and manual's a mode. It can be fully driven in manual mode all the time. And in that mode, it is a brilliant quick shifter. It rev matches on the way down. It's an instant shift at any revs, low revs or high revs, as a quick shifter. And I love that aspect of it because it's exactly like riding a motorcycle. You have that engine rev, you have everything that you would normally have. You just don't have to feather the clutch. And to be honest, on bikes like these, we're not feathering the clutch all the time anyways, we're quick shifting them. So in a manual mode, it's an amazing quick shifter, and it really just moves the switch from your foot moving up and down to your thumb and finger moving up and down. So I am actually okay with that. But then we come to the automatic mode. So the automatic mode is much tougher, and the first person that rode this bike, he rode it before I did, he got off and he had a complaint. He says it will shift in turns, like in corners and intersections and that kind of thing, and he didn't like that. So I want to talk about where that comes from and why I don't think it's a problem. So in my generation and older, when we did rider training, and it's probably the same thing now, but when we did rider training, we were told, do not shift in an intersection. And there was a whole bunch of reasons why. Some of it was because we were rider training. We might dump that clutch, have some inexperienced movements of that bike, and drop the bike. The other reason is a very, very practical reason. Not every bike is high up like this one, and if you stick your toe underneath that gear shift, you're actually lowering the ground clearance as you're turning into that turn. So especially on a left-hand turn at an intersection, you lower that ground clearance, you stick your toe in. Some bikes, you can actually drag that toe just by sticking it underneath that gear shift lever to be able to put it up. So that was a concern. But the big thing was, you wanted to maintain smooth control through a corner. And a lot of us have built into our brain, you can never shift in a corner, especially in those intersection type corners. So we get bigger and bigger bikes, we don't need to shift in those slower speed type corners, and this one sometimes will. So in our head, that's wrong because we were told it's wrong. The reality is, I drive a low displacement bike right now. I drive a 450cc single cylinder adventure bike, and I'm shifting in corners. And shifting in corners isn't a big deal as long as you're not running your toe into the ground, which on my bike it's got lots of ground clearance, and you're smooth shifting. If you're smooth shifting, you can shift in corners and it's totally fine. So this thing, in its automatic mode, although it may sometimes shift where you don't exactly want it to, it is never an issue. Or maybe I shouldn't say don't want it to. It may shift sometimes when you don't expect it to. And when I say that, I still think that only happens the very first few times you ride this. Once you get used to the ride mode you're gonna ride in, you get used to the RPMs that it's gonna shift, and that will shift with the ride modes. So as you get used to the ride modes, it'll shift relatively expectantly, and that may be in a corner, but it doesn't matter because it's so instant and so smooth, it's not gonna rattle you, and there's no risk of you putting your foot down underneath the gear shifter because there is no gear shifter. So what I found is, both with the manual shifting and with the automatic shifting, it really wasn't a concern that it shifts in the corner. So you have to get out of your brain that shifting in the corner can be dangerous, because it's generally only dangerous if it really messes with the character of the bike, especially in a lean angle. And I found through my riding, it was a shorter ride, like 45 minutes to an hour ride, that it never had an issue for me of any kind of stability in any kind of way. Now, if you are concerned and you're riding athletically, drop it to the manual mode. You still don't have to use a clutch, and then you can shift exactly where you want. But there's another option. You can change some of the shift points in the dash. You can go to the menu settings and change that first shift if that's what you want to do. So there are ways to get around it. What I would do is leave the bike as is. Don't change it. Get used to how it is and learn to be confident on it, because what I found is in the automatic mode, this thing is actually really comfortable to shift it in automatic mode. So let's wrap up by telling you sort of overall my experiences with this in a variety of situations. So when I took this bike out, I took it out as a reviewer and I tried to test it in a variety of situations. So what I found is, at a normal launch of any kind of normalcy where you just twist the throttle and go, I actually liked it. It comes out and goes very quickly. Like I said, there's that, when I try to test it in that very, very ultra low speed, there's a little bit of an on-offness to it, but that is super, super rare, and you can very much avoid it. So from a stop, I kind of like it. The Yamaha representative did point out never rev it at a stoplight, because you will find yourself going. I think you'll get used to that very quickly. You can drop in neutral if you really want to rev it, but it's not a big deal. You're not going to sit there and rev it like that. You're just going to, from a stop, start rolling. From that point on, in automatic mode, again, the shift points change based on your riding style. Driving through the curvy roads when we were going quick, I put it in the automatic mode. I had it in a more of a sport mode. I can't remember exactly which mode I had it in, and it was very, very good. I never found it was shifting where I wouldn't want it. I never found it was disrupting the bike in any way. So it was surprisingly good to me. I was expecting it to falter in that type of riding, and it didn't, even in the automatic mode. Driving in town was a different story. Driving in town, throw this thing in automatic. It's not worth touching the shifter. The same way we don't want to have to let on and off the clutch all the time, but driving in town, the automatic works very, very well. And I would say for most riders who buy this bike, that's where you're just gonna leave it in automatic. Now, if you leave it in automatic in town, you come out of town, you're going on those, say, 80 km an hour, 50 mile per hour roads. Let's say you want to pass someone. If you just give it the throttle, it will downshift and go. But what I like to do is, even with the automatic mode in place, you can still drop gears manually short term. So you can drop gears manually, get it going, fly by with the, just using the throttle and dropping gears, and it will, default over whatever period of time back to the automatic and upshift as it needs to. So you can still, without having to change modes, downshift at an instant with a brilliant quick shifter that is operated through your thumb and finger. You can downshift really quickly, get going and go by, and then it'll take over automatic mode with no change in modes. I thought you would have to go to a manual transmission mode, downshift, go by, go back to the automatic transmission mode. That's not the case. Even if you're in automatic mode, if you want to just get by somebody in a hurry, downshift, boom, and then just ignore it, it'll go back to automatic, which again, works very well. What I think is best about this bike is it is incredibly easy, without even thinking, without paying attention to tons of dash type stuff, to switch it from automatic to manual mode. Once you're in manual mode, this thing literally drives like a regular motorcycle would, with a quick shifter that is flawless and operated through your fingers. So to me, I got off this bike and I'm like, yeah, it's weird, I want the clutch, that kind of thing, I miss the clutch, and I would buy it in manual. I'm telling you now, I would probably consider buying this one in the automatic. In fact, I probably would lean to buying this one in the automatic, because the in-town driving gets easier. On a bike like this, when I'm shifting quickly, I'm gonna wanna use the quick shifter anyways, and this is a brilliant quick shifter from the fingers instead of the feet, which is fine. And again, driving in town, you can switch between that automatic and manual anytime you want. So to me, it doesn't lose any sporting character of this bike, which was my huge concern. Even in automatic, it's pretty good, but if you wanna go manual, you can. But it also works very well in the automatic mode for the types of riding where it's like, I don't want to shift right now, just let it do its thing. Stop and go traffic, in and around town, or just out on a country ride where you're just kind of riding casual. It works very well. So, full wrap up. Everyday driving, automatic works very well. If you don't want an automatic, then yeah, don't buy it. But it is kind of nice to have in some of the everyday driving. As you get sporty, it works fine, but my personal preference is to drop it in manual and utilize that brilliant quick shifting function of the finger and thumb. And as far as that goes, everything around town, excellent. So I am someone who still says you should buy a manual transmission bike, that's the way you should go. I don't think this is the best learning transmission. I think you should know how to ride a bike first, because you can really, drop a couple gears quickly and get yourself in trouble with all that throttle power. But I think us experienced riders are actually gonna like this if we're open to an automatic transmission. I was not going in, I am now. And I will tell you, I recently rode an electric bike, Can-Am Origin, had that tested for a few days. My review's up on the channel as well. That is also a clutchless bike, so no transmission, no shifting. That was different. That was not, that feels like a totally different class of vehicle, even though it's still a motorcycle. This feels exactly like a motorcycle with a quick shifter for most cases, other than that very first initial clutch release. Because once you do that first clutch release on bikes with quick shifters, I don't know about you, but I'm tending to use that quick shifter for a whole bunch of times unless I don't need to. This thing works very, very well. So kudos to Yamaha. Like I said, I didn't want to like it. I didn't want to go on camera and said I like it. I was going to go on camera and say, here's who it's good for, here's who it's not. In general, it's good for me. It's going to be good for a lot more people who are watching this video who might think, I don't want it. If you're honest with yourself and you're willing to get by your own biases, I think you'll appreciate it and like it. And like I said, in this style bike, I might buy it automatic. I probably would buy it in automatic. And that hurts me to hear me say it, but I think it's better in some ways, and you don't lose enough in the other ways for it to be something I wouldn't recommend. So there is my unfortunate, sad, I want all the bikes to be manual because all the cars are gone, but this is good. It's very good. So there's my review of the Y-AMT transmission, Yamaha's new automatic. They did a good job. Gotta give them credit.